Growing a business is hard, but it does not have to be. Once a week, we take a break from the hustle and bustle in business to talk about innovations and what's new in the C suite. This is the Fractional C Suite Retreat, and I'm Joseph Frost. Pull up a seat at the fire, grab a drink, smoke a cigar, and just join me as we relax, learn, and get inspired. This retreat is sponsored by your CMO, helping organizations grow with better marketing strategy.
Hi, welcome to the C-Suite Retreat. I'm your guest host today, Sonja O'Brien, fractional CMO and marketing strategist, and I'm part of the Your CMO fractional marketing community. So just a bit about my background. I spent the first part of my career managing global iconic brands inside Fortune 500 businesses. And then I moved into digital healthcare organization before bringing that expertise to small and scaling organizations with this new model of fractional. So my whole philosophy as a marketing leader is human first marketing that connects and is consistent, because I strongly believe trust and engagement come before the sale can happen. So today I get to sit in a seat I don't usually sit in as guest host on the C-Suite Retreat. And I'm talking with someone who's solving the same broken foundational problems I'm seeing every day, but just from the sales side. Today, my guest is Nicole Vorkapic, a sales advisor and fractional sales leader with Group E and Company. She's based in New Orleans, and she brings 25 years in sales, 15 at the executive level across VC-backed companies, family-owned operations, and publicly traded businesses. She's turned around underperforming sales functions, built revenue ops from scratch, and has an engineering undergrad plus an MBA from Kellogg at Northwestern. So that's quite a background. Nicole, welcome. I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
So before we dive in, can you give us your 30-second version of what you do?
Sure. So I build sales systems for small and mid-sized companies. Think about repeatable, scalable sales systems designed to grow revenue, really without the founder being the one who has to close every deal. So I can build it, I can lead the function, I can coach the CEO to build it and lead it themselves, and I can also roadmap it for them. So really the same goal, either way. It's really just trying to help them get to sustainable revenue without the cost of a full-time executive.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that background. So I just want to start somewhere that I don't think we always go to in a business podcast, but I think it's really important. This goes back to what I said at the beginning about connection and building trust. So I always like to understand the why.
Mm.
And obviously you made a deliberate choice to go into fractional. So what actually shifted for you?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question. So I'm actually, as you mentioned, I'm an engineer by education, and I hopped over to sort of the sales and the commercial side. I guess it's now probably been about 25 years, and of those, 15 has really been leading teams at the executive level. So I think in my sort of career in corporate America, two things really changed for me. First, I have two teenage daughters. I traveled a whole lot, and quite frankly, I really wasn't as present as I really wanted to be, and really that they needed me to be. I'm a native of New Orleans. I've kind of lived in and out of New Orleans my whole life, moving away and moving back a few times. But as socially as I am connected here with my family, I didn't really feel a part of the city the way that I wanted to be either. And I think owning my own practice sort of gave me back both of those, both my family and my community. And then I think the second piece is a little simpler. Like I really love the work. I love what I do, and I wanted to love it more, in a different kind of way. And I think going fractional means for me that I get to do it for companies that would really never be able to afford someone with my background full time. So I we all like feeling valued, and I feel like that there's so much more that I could give, and now I can just do it in a really different and more meaningful way.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I actually share a lot of the same sentiment you do, similarly to teenage sons, and reassessing, having, working internationally, traveling a ton, getting to prioritize them, but also what you shared about the way in which you can support these organizations and make a meaningful impact, I think is so important as well. So yeah, I love what you shared, and that's a very similar sentiment that I have.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of curious on that. Do you think that kind of clarity about like why you do this actually makes you better at the work itself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. You know, I think clarity on your purpose and your mission. I mean, when you think about just the sales function itself, I mean, you know, selling is telling a story. It's not just about features and benefits and dumping a product. It's about really like who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, what it means to you. And that story resonates with whoever is going to buy it, whether that's me selling my own fractional services or an owner selling their own products and services. And I think that level of authenticity is what everybody loves in any kind of sales rep. I think what makes us always feel icky about selling is when it doesn't feel real and it feels fake and it feels false. And I think most humans have like an intuitive, like, gut feeling of when it's like real or not real. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think having clarity about why I'm doing what I'm doing absolutely translates into all of my conversations, whether it's a business owner who doesn't know yet that they want to hire me, or it's a business owner who has hired me and we're actually just, sleeves up digging down into the business. So,
Wow, you are speaking my language. That so resonates with me, and I feel like that is so important. And I appreciate that you understand that from the sales side of you. And you're right, you're
yeah,
telling stories, and ones that obviously you believe in because it's something that's very authentic, and that
yeah,
you see where the value is and able to convey that in a meaningful way, because it is the same challenge that I'm often trying to address as a marketing leader. And even though those stories exist, for some reason they don't come through that way when it comes to having the different resources or the website, really zeroing in on what the audience is challenged by, and empathizing with them and connecting with them is so
hmm
important, versus just showing up in a very robotic or kind of forced way. So I love that you really are intentional and thoughtful and making those connections. So, and I do believe you're going to be so much more effective because of that. So I love that that's your philosophy. Uh,
yeah, no, actually, and part of it, I mean, when you think about it, like I'm actually selling sales advisory services. So a lot about
yeah.
how I show up and just in my connection and networking with business owners translates in just sort of like my philosophy methodology of what I'll bring to their business and showing how their teams need to do it for their clients, right?
Yeah.
So it sort of just it connects it all in the same. And so um, you know, I think sometimes business owners kind of forget that in a way, or they
Mhm.
don't actually make the connection to that. So yeah, so I try to always make sure that I'm speaking with them like I would speak with their own clients.
Yeah.
And then it allows them to actually understand what it can look like
Mhm.
versus maybe what they're experiencing today. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making it tangible. That makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Well, let's get into it. I am curious, what's the biggest opportunity that C-suites are missing out on today that you are seeing?
Okay. Yeah. This is a really great question. So, okay, most owners really always try to fix a revenue problem by hiring more salespeople. And that is almost never the answer. I'm not saying that it's not sometimes the answer,
Right.
but it's almost never the answer. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so the answer usually is that the system underneath the salespeople is broken, and you
Mhm.
cannot hire out a broken system. So the
Mm.
way that I like to look at it as I think of people and process, and by the way, people and process can be applied to any functional area of a business, and that's no different than in sales, right? And so oftentimes we think it's the person, but when we really start to dig down on it, there's broken processes underneath that doesn't allow the person to succeed the way that they need to. And
Mhm.
I see this constantly on the sales side. So a founder has built the company, let's just say it's at 2 million or 5 million, or maybe even at 20 million, and they're doing it strictly on the hustle, personal relationships. And then he gets stuck and they're wondering why it's stuck. Like what they did before is no longer working. And then they think, oh, well, maybe it's the reps. They fire the reps, they hire new reps. And then again, nothing really changes. And it's just because the problem should not automatically be assumed to be the people. And they're often out of looking at the process first, right? So the problem oftentimes is that there's no defined customer, there's no
Mhm.
documented process,
Yeah.
there's no metrics, there's no rhythm, and then the reps are really guessing every day. Reps, much like anyone in their organization, needs structure, needs process, and needs to be guided on really what they need to be doing. So the
Mhm.
opportunity that they're missing is really kind of the fact that fixing the system really is faster, cheaper, and more durable than
Mhm.
a constant cycle of hiring and firing, right?
Mhm.
That then becomes a leadership decision. It's not really something a salesperson can do for you. Um, but it's oftentimes not where the CEO wants to spend time, or maybe where they even really want to invest in time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I see the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I think the challenge with the foundation is it does take some time and effort to get that in a good place, but then you get the benefit of that, going forward. But unfortunately, I think there's also a sentiment of feeling like we're not, out there doing it right now. It's not,
No,
it's a reactive, chaotic reaction. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, no, I don't have time to
Right.
spend 2, 3, 4 months to build the process. Like, I need revenue today. And honestly, there are ways to run those in parallel. I mean, there's risks in doing
That's a
it,
good idea.
but there's ways to successfully do it. And so, just because, we're saying, hey, you need process doesn't mean that you can't really try to do it one at the same time. I mean, I think those really require really good roadmaps and
Mhm.
really making sure we understand what the roadmap is and what the critical decision points and decisions that need to be made in the roadmap so
Mhm.
that you can run them both successfully. And then that when you're going into it with the CEO, you're just kind of eyes wide open as to kind of what the risks are. So you're like, you're working it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can be done together, absolutely.
Yeah.
And oftentimes if it's done right, the hires and the new hires can really help to inform some of the process if it's the right kind of hire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can be done together, but you can't just hire without the process. Like it just doesn't work. You're setting them up for failure. You're not going to get the results that you want, and you're just going to be back at the same place that you were 6 months later. So,
Yeah. No, that is such a great point and reminder about the importance of parallel activities.
yeah,
We also will do some of that work where we know that the website needs to, be improved and all the messaging needs to be improved and updated to really be
yes,
effective. Because when they come to the site, it's like it has to be consistent. But it's like
yeah,
they want to continue building, getting leads coming in the door. So it's like, well, what could we do? We do know some of that outreach or LinkedIn posting is still going to help. So let's sprinkle that in. We can still make it better than where it is right now because we do know some things that we can get those quick wins and enhance what we have today, but acknowledging that really to be effective, we need to work on that foundation. So I think that's a great point about those parallel activities.
no, absolutely. But that's also the reason why marketing is really important. And I know that's, we're sitting here together. You're a
Yeah.
marketing exec and I'm a sales exec. I mean,
Yeah.
Marketing is always critical, and I will say that I do oftentimes. I shouldn't say that I don't see CEOs not investing in it. I think when they think of marketing, they think of advertising.
Hmm.
And I do think there's a whole nother element that comes before that, kind of like in sales. It's like the process piece, like who's your ideal client profile? What's your really value proposition? What is your story? What are you going to say? That's not something that sales kind of makes up. That actually really comes with a really great marketing partner,
Hmm.
truthfully, because the marketing person is the one that really is the expert in understanding the industry, understanding the products and services within the industry, understanding
Hmm.
the competitive nature of the industry, you know what I mean? And sales is the executable arm of that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like a feedback loop. A really good
Yes.
marketer needs a good salesperson, a good salesperson needs a good marketer. You know, we take a lot of, um, I often like to I often like to see that there's a good marketing person or a partner in the organizations because I'll learn a lot from that that will help inform the sales process, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and in the sales scripts, and what we need to say, how we translate that when we're face to face with the client and when
Hmm.
the companies are face to face with the client.
Hmm.
It definitely doesn't mean that, it's not just an advertising thing, so I always like to say that. But I oftentimes think that there's a misnomer, in some
Yeah.
organizations of what really marketing is and the value they bring. I mean, academically, I went to Kellogg, in
Yeah.
Northwestern, and they will tell you front and center, sales is a subset of marketing, and no salesperson wants to
Yeah.
hear that. Marketing people love it. But honestly, like when you've been in a situation where it hasn't worked, like sales
Hmm.
hasn't worked because there's key elements of marketing that's missing, like you really understand and appreciate the value that marketing brings to the table. I'm always a big fan of making
Yeah.
sure I have a good marketing partner. And so, yeah,
It
that's how
does
I've
make
run
it
sales.
makes such a difference though. And I love how you coined it the feedback loop because you guys have your ear to the ground. You're connecting with the customer. You have that rich voice of customer. You know what their pain points are.
Yeah.
And really being able to convey that so marketing can understand that once again, as I mentioned, empathy, make that connection, be able to tell the story more effectively, equip the sales team then with those talking points or
Mhm.
resources. I mean, we just all win when we are collaborating in that way because then at the end, like we also want to drive that consistency because I think we can easily meander. Maybe we do have like 30 benefits, but like what are the three that we need to like really drive home and getting tight on that and being consistent. So I think the opportunity is huge, but I mean, we've also seen the alternative of that or where it hasn't worked well. And where I think it's the pressure maybe from the leadership that is driving that more combative situation where we feel like we're competing, and there's no reason why that should ever be the case, because we
Yeah.
all are going to be successful if we can come together in this way and be that feedback loop for one another like you had mentioned. I love that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I've got a really great example.
Mm.
I did not sign this client, but I'll tell you why I didn't sign this client.
Okay.
It definitely has to do with the whole connection between marketing and sales. Wonderful company, wonderful leader, wonderful service and product on the healthcare side. And he had hired some contract salespeople in the past. And I mean, like, and he claims, I'm not a salesperson. I don't know how to drive accountability. It's not what I do. It's uncomfortable for me. And so I had an EOS implementer bring me in. He was like, this guy really needs your help, Nicole. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, this is awesome. And I loved it. And I loved the service that he was providing. And then, I mean, honestly, the very first thing is like, oh my gosh, like I need a marketing person to partner with on this because
Mm.
while he had this great service and it was mission driven and he would sit down and talk about like, he's a nurse and why he opened up the business and what he was really doing and the benefits bringing to the patient. The problem was he literally had zero system. no marketing system, no
Mm,
sales system. He had no scripts. He didn't really even have a really well thought out roadmap of who his real ideal client profile was. And then in addition to that, like what were really going to be the challenges and the objections that we were going to run into in trying to sell this provider service, you know what I mean? And that's really where the marketing person needed to come in to kind of help to really vet it out. Like you can't just walk into a potential employer to go sell a provider service and not be prepared to answer all the questions and understand how does it fit into what they do now? You know, what does this mean for their employees? You know what I mean? And that is really where the marketing element came in.
mhm.
And even as a salesperson, I couldn't really answer all those questions, right? I really needed a marketing partner to be able to get down to the details for that. And then I can help to go and validate the messaging, you
Right.
know, me and my team
Yeah.
and run qualifications to see is it hitting right with these ideal client profiles? What more do we need to be able to support the employer to be able to feel comfortable converting into the provider service, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, we had multiple conversations with the owner, and it was really clear something just really wasn't resonating. And at the end of the day, the
Mm,
owner, I think, was a little frustrated and just kind of came back and said, you know, I don't feel like you're really hearing me. Like, I need sales and I need sales today. Like, I need a
yeah.
sales rep.
Mhm.
And we were saying, well, we can hire a sales rep. We can do that immediately. We can run in parallel, but you cannot do that without really understanding all these other pieces, because then what are they going to say? Like, you know,
Mhm.
what roadmap are you giving them? At the end of the day, it unfortunately didn't really work out. And, you
Mhm.
know, not entirely really sure kind of really what happened with the organization, but, you know, I guess I would just say is that sometimes I just think that maybe even those founders need to kind of like run it the way that they want to run it, to only kind of circle back around and go, yeah, I think you're right. Like I really need that for me to be able to kind of grow and scale the way that I need to. Um, but you know, and that's kind of really what's happening now. Like, you know, is just recently got a call from that same business owner saying, okay, yeah, let's sit down
Oh,
and talk again. But you know,
okay.
maybe we can stage this in differently and roadmap it a little differently so that um, it makes sense for the business for where we are today, you know, and
Interesting.
that's just a really great example. Um, but yeah, but it's just sometimes I think they have to kind of go and learn the hard way sometimes,
Yeah,
and they
I
come back
agree. It can be a
and they have to be
timing
ready
thing.
for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Budget can be a factor. I think timing, whether it's their own readiness and awareness and understanding, like, has it bubbled up from a priority? Are they finally seeing it? Because we've had that too, where we've put a proposal together and in the end, they declined or said, we can't do it now. But then they realize, and it's like you can see it, but they need to also understand the value and be able to connect it and have the budget. That's another piece of it too, like you mentioned. But I think it is interesting what you were also saying about the owner, because I think, what I'm sort of hearing you say is you weren't going to be set up for success because you didn't
Right.
have some of those tools, resources, maybe the talking points, the narrative, at least to start with, and then you can refine it as you're engaging with the audience. And I'm sort of guessing too that sometimes the owners are too close to it. You can't see the forest. I always
Yeah.
put this up from the trees from the forest, and so it is one of those things where they're so close to it, they're not realizing sometimes where those gaps are, and you can hopefully help them connect those dots. And sometimes they will see it, and sometimes they, like you said, need to see it for themselves as they go along as well, and they'll get there. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, if I could wave a magic wand, here is kind of how I would kind of look at it. It's sort of like I say, like,
mm,
every CEO needs to stop treating sales as something that lives in the sales department, right?
mhm,
And before a salesperson can succeed, someone at the top, the CEO, the founder, someone else, I always say it needs to really answer four questions. Who's our customer? Where do we find them? What's our process for moving them through? And what does winning look like? And if the leadership can't answer those questions, then there's no way the salesperson is going to be able
Yeah.
to win the game, where there's no really defined rules. But that's really where marketing comes in too, because sales shouldn't be, sales can kind of help to direct and validate. We're not the ones creating the messaging around, what is our value proposition? How do we differentiate ourselves? That's really where marketing comes in. That's why there's just a really great partnership. But clearly, if a company can't really succinctly provide you their value proposition and how they differentiate, it's going to be really, really hard for a salesperson to do it for them, right? That actually does have to start at the top.
Yeah.
That's where you come in, Sonja.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love it. I totally agree. And I love what you called out about, whether it's who's your ideal customer profile and where are
Yeah.
they? And I mean, these are the same questions we have. So it
Yeah.
just reinforces the collaborative nature of our roles.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
okay, well, hey, let's zoom out a second here. So the you called fractional the right model for the right moment we're in, or we've talked about that before.
Mhm.
Um, just tell me more about that. Like, why do you think finally, owners are ready to accept this model, or do you, or to what extent? I don't know where, we have this adoption curve that's happening. I've seen a lot of different statistics around this. It's hard sometimes because we're close to it, but then also zooming out and seeing what's going on right now. So I'd love to get your perspective on this, the fractional model that we are a part of today.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, I could tell you, I think the word fractional like is what only like 2 years old, and I'm not even really sure who came up with the title. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
thing. I think outsourced executives honestly have been around a long time, especially if you think about the finance side.
Mhm.
More strongly on the marketing side. Sales is starting to jump into it, operations is jumping into it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's, honestly, it's kind of democratizing executive talent for a bit. Like a $20
Mm.
million company cannot afford a $300,000 VP of sales, you know, but that doesn't mean that they don't need that level of thinking.
Mhm.
And I think the old answer was always to hire someone that was cheaper and watch the company plateau. Honestly, this is a bit of I think of a sticky wick in the corporate world too. But fractional, at least for small and mid-sized businesses, is a fantastic answer to bring in a senior person, a subject matter expert in their functional space, 1 or 2 days a week. Get the thinking and the leadership that they have not been able to afford, and then grow into a full-time hire later,
Mhm.
or because the whole idea of fractional is not to be around forever. It's meant to be a fraction of the time to enable that company to get to a point where they've grown their revenue, they've grown their system to
Mhm.
the point where now they can bring on a full-time hire, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of like the really nice thing about it. There's really nothing wrong with it if it's done and it's implemented and used in the right way. I do think the movement is real. I don't really think it's a trend. I honestly really believe that's how the next decade of mid-market growth is going to get done, truthfully.
Yeah. I've shared this statistic with a lot of people. It still blows my mind, but like I think it was early last year, I saw that Forbes had said in an article that 50% of the workforce would be independent by 2027. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it likely over indexes, in certain areas of our markets. You have the gig economy, you have like the DoorDashes and the Ubers, but it's clearly relevant in so many other ways. And what I love about it is we don't have to be so hard and fast about how we solve problems. It's like, what do you need? How do we solve it? And I even have sometimes a little bit of a reaction with fractional. Like I never want to say only a fractional CMO, because to me it's just like I'm, a marketing strategist, a marketing leader, and I want to help you where you're at. Maybe it's a project, maybe it's ongoing retainer. I mean, let's figure out what you're needing. And I think that's where it's at the end of the day, because businesses are constantly changing now. Things are moving so quickly, and for them to make an investment in a full-time hire where in 6 months they might be in a different place,
Yeah.
they need some flexibility. And
Yeah.
you're even seeing that in the Fortune 500 companies where, I mean, we've seen so many layoffs, and that's because things just keep changing. So I wonder what variations of this might even exist there. But certainly, I love the opportunity that smaller emerging organizations have to be able to tap into this talent, as you had said, because they still need that thinking and that expertise, um, but weren't able to access it. Now we can be creative.
No, I mean, absolutely. I know that there are large search firms and recruitment firms that are probably not very pro fractional. I realize it's a disruption into their own business model. And I'll be the first one to say, like, those of us that go into the fractional work are not even necessarily looking to be hired full time. Like it's not intended for that. It's really to meet the business of where they are, right? I mean, you kind of have
Yeah.
already said that.
Yeah.
Um, but it does make sense. I mean, to deny that it doesn't, this doesn't seem very logical or practical, because everybody wants the best kind of talent to help them through. It's just like hiring, business coaches. Sometimes your business just needs it. It's not forever. But
Right.
there's points and times that everyone's learning. It's called curiosity and learning.
Mhm.
The business owners are learning through you and they're learning through me because they're not experts in sales. They're not experts in marketing, right? And
And they
and then
don't have to be, right?
and they don't have to be, right. And they don't need to be. They need to be running their business as a CEO
Yeah.
and as a visionary, right? And
Yeah.
so I will say though that on the reverse side, and selfishly a little bit, from my side, it gives people like me who've got a lot of deep institutional knowledge around sales and all sorts of settings. It gives me a platform, right, to go out and serve more companies, have more of an impact than I would in any single full-time seat would allow, right? I'm not trapped into company politics. I actually like the diversity. I'm helping 5 owners build all at once versus just one.
Yeah.
And again, I do think small and mid-sized businesses and these CEOs and founders, they really value what we have to bring to the table.
Mhm.
And so I think that's cool. I really love
Yeah.
it. I love leaning into it. It's been probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done. I just waited so long to get here to do it. But then again, waiting that long gives me all this great knowledge that I can then bring to them. I think had I done it earlier in my career, I wouldn't have had the depth of knowledge and information and experience to make it as
Mhm.
valuable as what I do today. But yeah, I think it's on both sides. I think there's definitely a place when it's done correctly, and for the right reasons. So yeah,
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right about, and I think this is why you and I connect to the work. You kind of said it at the beginning, just the opportunity to make a meaningful impact, based on the stage of growth that they're at and the ways in which you can help them in these,
yeah,
really set up the structure, really set up the foundation, like set them up for long-term success. It just feels good, right? To tap
it
into your
does. Yeah,
experience and expertise. So,
it definitely does. Yeah, absolutely. I do love it. I think I was destined to do this from a long time ago. It's just taken me a little while to get here. And it's super, super rewarding. Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think seeing the possibility in the path, because it wasn't apparent, 10 or 20 years ago, that wasn't the way of work in a significant
Right.
way. Maybe there were some pioneers, I don't know, but yeah, now seeing the possibility, it's like, oh yeah, that I want to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think with macroeconomics and the dynamics of what's going on in today's world and environment, it feels so out of your control because it is, and I'm sure that's how all the business owners feel. They just don't have control over certain things that's impacting their business, but they still have to move forward. So how do they do that? And offering up our services in this kind of way, project-based, fractional oriented, gives them the flexibility to do that, when cash flow could be tight and making commitment to a full-time hire seems very overwhelming. You know what I mean? And so, that way they can reserve their cash and make those full-time hire decisions in places that really necessitate it. You know what I mean? And gives them sort of time and a runway to build up to bringing on the right person at the right time when systems are built. So, um, I think that whole flexibility piece, as you mentioned, for small, mid-sized businesses is to me the real critical, the linchpin in all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We're convinced. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things evolve here in the next, I mean,
Yeah,
it's moving so
absolutely.
quickly, but it's exciting times for sure.
Absolutely.
So anyway, well, with that, Nicole, this has been such a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on to the C-Suite Retreat.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Sure. So certainly I'm on LinkedIn. So you can look me up on LinkedIn under my name, Nicole Vorkapic. I also have a LinkedIn page for Groupie and Company. And I don't want to be remiss. I'm also part of this amazing organization called Sales Acceleration. So much like what your CMO is to you, Sales Acceleration is to me. We're a consortium of fractional sales leaders across the country. um, I love being part of it. It's a super professional group of people. We all bring a lot of different sort of product expertise to the table that allows us to share best practices. You can also find me on the Sales Acceleration website. Yeah, so please go check it out. Yeah,
And we'll
so
probably have some of this in the show notes, so we'll have some of those links available as well.
yeah, perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you. That'd
yeah,
be
yeah,
great.
yeah. So
Awesome.
thank you so much again.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite. I love it. It's,
Yes, I'm
it's been
glad we
great.
did
It's
this.
been fun.
Yeah, and so to our listeners, if this landed with you, please share it with others, founders for sure, and other fractional sales leaders or fractional leaders across disciplines. And yeah, we'll see you next time on the C-Suite Retreat. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. There's another successful episode of the Fractional C-Suite Retreat. See our show notes and more episodes at fractionalcsuiteretreat.com. This podcast is sponsored by your CMO, helping organizations grow, save time and money with better marketing strategy and fractional execution. Visit them at yorcmo.com, yourcmo.com. Spelled wrong on purpose.